Hi everyone, it's Sandy, and in today's video I will be talking about my favorite books that I read in 2018. In 2018 I read a total of 87 books and I want to talk about 14 books in this video. I'm going to start off this video with a few honorable mentions that didn't quite make my favorites list but are still books that I really enjoyed and want to talk about. The first honorable mention is The Way You Make Me Feel by Maurene. This book follows Clare, who pulls off this prank at a high school event, and the prank goes a little bit too far, and because of that she is punished and has to work in her dad's food truck for the summer. And not only does she have to work in her dad's food truck, but she has to work with this other girl that she does not like. This was just a super fun, cute, and fluffy contemporary book. I really love the friendships that were developed in this book, and although the romance wasn't my favorite, I still thought it was really cute. I also really love the family dynamics in this book. Clare lives with her dad, her parents are divorced, and her mom's like a social media influencer that gets to travel the world. This book was just so much fun to read, and I will continue to buy whatever book that Maurene publishes in the future because I think that they are great. The next honorable mention is Crazy Rich Asians by Kwan. This book follows Rachel, who agrees to spend the summer in Singapore with her boyfriend, who happens to be crazy rich. This was an incredibly entertaining story full of drama and complex family dynamics. I did have a few problems with this book, one of them being all the different types of perspectives that we got. I would have preferred if we focused more on Rachel and Nick than some of the other characters, but it was still interesting to read from other characters' point of views and seeing how everything kind of connects with one another. I especially loved the Asian culture in this book. It's always really great seeing more Asian representation in literature, and especially with the movie that came out this past summer. The movie is definitely one of my all-time favorite movies. I just connected with it so much. I always get so emotional over the movie because I'm able to see so many amazing and badass Asians on screen. This book and the whole movie franchise will definitely always have a special place in my heart. And my last honorable mention is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. This book follows Anna Fox, who lives in New York City, and one day this new family moves in next door. Anna likes to watch her neighbors through her windows, and one day she witnesses something happen in the home of the family that just moved in, and the story goes from there. I do want to give a content warning for this book for agoraphobia, depression, substance abuse, death. I'm probably missing a few things, but definitely be aware of those content warnings and do more research before going into it. This was a really compelling story that had me hooked from the very beginning. I wasn't completely blown away by the ending, but I just loved how unreliable the main character was. The book does definitely mess with your mind. It makes you question whether the things the main character sees is real or not real. So that is it for all the honorable mentions. Now I'm going to move on to my favorites list, and all the books aren't in any particular order. The only order that they are in is that I'm going to go in chronological order of when I read these books. The first book that became a favorite of 2018 is Dear Martin by Nick Stone. This book follows Justice McAllister, who begins writing letters to Martin Luther King Jr. One day, Justice and his best friend are going for a drive. They're playing really loud music, and during this drive they encounter an off-duty police officer. Words are exchanged between the both of them, and all of a sudden shots are fired and Justice's best friend is killed. This is such a timely and gut-wrenching story. It's so heartbreaking, but it also discusses so many issues. The story is so raw and real and moving, and it's just so incredible. This book is definitely a must-read. If you love The Hate U Give, then you should definitely pick this book up as well because I think it's just as amazing. My next favorite of 2018 is Outrun the Moon by Stacey Lee. This book is a historical fiction taking place in San Francisco in 1906, and it follows our main character, who is Chinese American. Her name is Mercy Wong, and she's living in poverty, living in Chinatown, and she's determined to get an education. Unfortunately for her, because of her financial situation and the fact that she's Chinese American, she's unable to further her education. However, she strikes up a deal with the principal at an all-girls school, and she ends up being allowed into the school. This is a book that I completely saw myself represented in. Like I mentioned earlier, the main character is Chinese American who also speaks Cantonese, and I also listened to this book on audiobook, so there are Cantonese words interwoven throughout the story. It warmed my heart, and it also made me feel proud to be able to speak Cantonese, even though I'm not like completely fluent or anything. But being able to understand all those words while I was listening to the audiobook just made me really happy. I also really loved Mercy's character. She's so intelligent, selfless, and caring, and she also stands up for her friends and what she believes in. Despite all the oppression that she faces, she doesn't give up and she goes after what she wants, and I just felt so empowered by her character. The author also touches on racial inequality and gender inequality throughout this book, and I thought it was just done so well. well. Overall, I absolutely love this book and I can't wait to read more from this author in the future. My next favorite book is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This is the first book in a series following characters with special abilities. In this world, there are a group called the Renegades who are the superheroes and the good guys, and the book is told in dual point of views. The first character is Nova, whose family was actually killed when she was younger, and when she was younger she looked up to the Renegades and she believed that the Renegades would help prevent her parents from being killed. However, they never showed up to help her, and because of that she wants to get vengeance on the Renegades. And the next character that the book follows is Adrian, who is the son of 2 Renegade council members. However, he also has secrets of his own. Nova ends up disguising herself as the Renegades to infiltrate the Renegades headquarters, and she succeeds, and now that she's posing as the Renegade, she gets put in a team with Adrian and they have to work together, and the story goes from there. I love this story. I pretty much enjoy most stories that have to do with characters with special powers, and I just really loved how unique Marissa Meyer made her world, and I also really liked how unique some of the powers in the book are. This book was just so much fun to read, and I loved how action-packed it was. I thought the world was so fascinating, and I loved learning about how society came to be the way that it is. I'm actually currently reading Arch Enemies. I'm not too far into it. I'm like 130 pages in, but I'm really enjoying that book so far too, so I can't wait to see where the story goes. My next favorite of 2018 is The Nowhere Girls by Amy Reid. This book centers around 3 girls who form this anonymous group of girls to resist the sexist culture at their high school. This book does deal with rape culture, so I do want to give a trigger warning for sexual assault. Although this book is mainly told in 3 point of views, we do get tiny snippets told from different girls' point of views that live in the same town as the main characters. I do like the intersectional representation of feminism in this book, and so with those snippets it ties the story together in such a powerful way, showcasing different perspectives and beliefs, and it also brings in vital voices that are often left out in the discussion of feminism. I love seeing girls supporting other girls, and this book was incredibly empowering to read. Another favorite of mine is Invictus by Graudin. This book follows our main character Far, who was actually born outside of time. He's the son of a time-traveling recorder and a gladiator. Far wants to become a time-traveling recorder like his mother. However, he ends up failing the last exam that he needs to take. He still wants to time travel, so he ends up becoming a part of a black market operation to steal valuable objects from the past. I honestly didn't expect to enjoy this book as much as I did, and I'm really glad that I picked it up. I loved being able to see all the different places that the characters travel to. I also really loved the group dynamic between Far and his crew. I was so engaged by the story and I never felt lost or confused. This is also a standalone, which I think is kind of rare to have a standalone sci-fi or fantasy book. I love the way the story was wrapped up, and it definitely left me really satisfied with how it ended. My next favorite is Ramona Blue by Julie Murphy. This book follows Ramona, who's living with her dad and pregnant sister. She is juggling multiple jobs and her family is struggling to make ends meet. Ramona is sure that she likes girls, but one day her childhood best friend Freddie moves back to town. They become friends again, and eventually Ramona begins to question her sexual identity. This is a book where not a lot happens, but the story is very much character driven, and that's what I loved about the story. I honestly didn't expect to love this book as much as I did. I really love Julie Murphy's portrayal of all the different relationships that Ramona had throughout the book, especially her relationship with each member of her family. The story takes place over the course of Ramona's senior year in high school, and I just really loved the pacing of it. It didn't feel too fast, didn't feel too slow. I think the pacing was just perfect. I also really love the friendships in this book. I like seeing her relationship with Freddie and seeing how that eventually grew into something more. The story definitely explores Ramona's sexuality and her sexual fluidity. Throughout the book, Ramona never identifies as being straight and she never stops liking girls. She just happens to fall in love with a guy, and I just really loved how the story explored that relationship. This was a really great read and I really loved it, and I would highly recommend it if you haven't read it yet. My next favorite book is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This book follows our main character Zaylee, who is fighting to bring magic back to her people. This was an amazing fantasy book with such an interesting magic system that I loved learning about. I really love Zaylee and Amari's character. I thought that they were amazing women and I really liked the friendship between them. The story is action-packed with lots of twists and turns. The story was definitely very engaging and I was hooked from the beginning. I'm also really looking forward to the second book that is coming out in March. Another favorite read of 2018 is Moxie by Jennifer Mathieu. This book follows Vivian, who is fed up with the sexist dress codes and hallway harassment. Because of that, she ends up creating a feminist zine that she distributes anonymously to her classmates. This book does deal with similar topics as The Nowhere Girls, which I discussed earlier in this video. I really love that we actually got to see the zines that are created throughout the book. I think it's just an amazing touch to the story. This story is also really empowering, and I love seeing all the characters' passion towards resisting the sexist culture at their high school. One thing that I do have to say about this book is that I would have loved to see other aspects of feminism explored throughout the book, but I still really enjoyed the story, and I also read this book in one day. It was just a really quick read. The next book that I wanted to talk about is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is definitely up there on my favorites list. I love this book so much. I know that this book is pretty hyped up, but I think it deserves all of its hype and praise. In case you don't know what this book is about, it follows our main character Evelyn Hugo. She is a bisexual Cuban-American Hollywood icon. She reaches out to this unknown reporter named Monique to tell her life story. The story explores being in the LGBT+ community in the mid to late 1900s and also being a woman of color in Hollywood. The story was just spectacular. Evelyn Hugo is such a captivating person. She felt like a real person. She's incredibly complex. She has her flaws. She can be selfish, manipulative, and unapologetic, but she's also really confident and compassionate and loving, and I just loved her characters so much. I became so invested in her life and her relationships with other characters. I love this book with all of my heart, and I cannot recommend this book enough. I definitely look forward to reading more books from this author. The second to last favorite book that I read in 2018 is The Hidden Oracle by Riordan. This book follows the god Apollo, who is punished by Zeus and is forced to live as a 16-year-old mortal. I actually listened to this as an audiobook, and this is definitely one of my favorite audiobooks because I had such a fun time listening to it. Apollo is definitely one of the funniest characters ever, and I think the narrator really brought out his humor in such an incredible way. I found myself laughing out loud so many times while listening to this, and every time I would have to stop listening, I would always look forward to the next time that I could listen to this book again. The story was really entertaining, and it's also refreshing that this book didn't include a romance. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say about The Hidden Oracle. And lastly, my last favorite book that I read in 2018 is Queen of Air and Darkness. I'm not going to go into the synopsis or talk much about this book because it is the third and final book in the Dark Artifices trilogy, and it's one of many Shadowhunter series. It's definitely not my favorite in the trilogy, but I still really love this book. I loved all the different characters that we got to see, and just seeing how all these different perspectives tie in with one another. I think Cassie does an amazing job continuing to expand the Shadowhunter world, and she just continues to make the Shadowhunter world so interesting and fun to read about. I am forever Shadowhunter trash, and I don't think I could ever get tired of reading about the Shadowhunter world. I just really love the Blackthorn family. They're definitely one of my favorite fictional families to read about. I can't wait to see what's in store for some of these characters in the Wicked Powers, which unfortunately we won't get to see until 2022, but nonetheless I still really love this book, and I thought it was a really great ending to a trilogy. So those are all of my favorite books that I've read in 2018. Let me know in the comments some of your favorite books that you read in 2018. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye!